is three little dots in the corner. Um, and you would just click on rename, and if you could put your name and the school that you're from and your role, we do appreciate that. I just welcome everybody for coming. My name is Stacy Pauling. I am the service desk specialist, and my partner Kim Powell is usually here hosting with me, but today she had a family emergency, so Naomi Colas is going to help me today with the coffee hour. Um, it's going to look a lot different today, so normally we just start off with a little introduction and then go into the coffee hour with questions, and then we have helpful information if we don't have very many questions. But today we're going to do a presentation, and then we're going to go into the coffee hour with our NDE experts because this has evolved. And so we wanted to make sure that we had our experts, and they're going to be the ones that are going to answer your questions today. We are going to be recording the session, and so you'll be able to get that from our website. In a few days, we'll have that up. But as a reminder, though, when you do ask your questions and when you put them in chat or say them vocally, just to be conscious of confidential information because this is being recorded. If you wanted to follow along with the presentation, we do have it on the Brewing Confidence website. It's down located in the attachment section, which is towards the bottom of the page. And you can do that. And then when we do get to the coffee hour, we're going to ask you to use the raise hand icon, and we'll call on you just because there's a large amount of people on the session today. And if you have a question as we're presenting during the presentation, you can go ahead and put it in the chat, and then we will address those questions during the coffee hour section. So how we're going to go today, we're just going to do a welcome. Since there's a wide variety of people here today, we thought we'd introduce and talk about the coffee hour a little bit, and then we'll introduce our guest speakers. And then we have, we'll talk about the systems overview, which is what we're going to be talking about, staff reporting and SPEDFRs. And so we'll be talking about the systems, the timeline, what happened, and then we'll go into the coffee hour section where you can ask questions and we will have conversation. So we welcome everybody for coming today. We just wanted to start off and let you know that what the coffee hour is all about. Kim and I are have past experiences of being data stewards. And so this comes from a heart of knowing the new data stewards, kind of like sitting in there in that seat and wondering why we do what we do, why do you report this, how does these things work? Maybe you don't know who to ask. And so we wanted to create a place that was comfortable and inviting, that they could come with casual conversation and we could just have a conversation about it. And this is only our third one. So we are excited that you guys are all here. And we've been doing them on a quarterly basis. And in November at our last one, we were having conversation organically rolled into like staff reporting of what staff reporting. And we discussed that we would have in January staff reporting 101. And as we were putting together planning for the coffee hour, it kind of evolved with everything that's been happening recently with SPEDFRs. So we decided to focus on this one as staff reporting and SPEDFRs. And then in April, we're going to do just staff reporting 101. That's going to give a bigger picture of staff reporting. We've also been receiving some tickets asking about future dates for the coffee hour so they can block out time on their calendar. So we have scheduled additional ones out. And so you can go onto our website and you can get those future dates. We are in the process of planning for topics. So if there is a specific topic that you would like to see discussed at coffee hour, please submit it to the service desk and we will look at that information and see if we can get that scheduled in as one of the topics. And then there's that link there that goes straight to the website for the coffee hours.
Stacy, I don't think we're seeing the slides that you're sharing yet. It's still on our title slide.
Well, that's not great.
It's good.
Okay.
There we go. If you want to go
Okay.
back, yeah, there, if you want to go back a couple.
There we go.
There, yay.
Okay. All right. Well, all right.
And
Okay. So,
I did put the link for everybody to the Brewing Confidence webpage in chat, but I'll put it in there again so everybody has it.
okay. Thank you for letting me know, Naomi. Um, okay. So for the coffee hour, we invited our experts. And so we have NDE guest speakers today. We have Mickey Sharf, who is the Assistant Administrator for Special Education. We have Naomi Colas, who is the Service Desk Supervisor. And then we have Camelia Rogers, which is Director of Grants Management, and Rebecca Shadman, who is the Grant Systems Specialist. And we're going to go over the systems overview. And there's two systems that are involved that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be discussing the NDE portal, which is just a secure platform for districts to submit their state reporting information, get their reports and things like that. So it's only available to the districts. It's not available to the public. So NDE portal is just for the districts to submit their information or analyze their information. And at this time, we have two portals. We're in the middle of a transition. So we have the legacy portal, and that verbiage a lot when we're talking about things in the legacy portal, you'll hear us saying collections. And then as we rewrite these collections, then we are putting them into the new portal. And you'll hear the terminology of applications, that there is applications in the new portal. So it all lives on one website. And on that website, we have a link that if you don't know which portal the collection or the application or which resource that you need is where it's located, there's a link that states which portal do I use. And you can click on that and that will give you a spreadsheet of which portal to use during this transition period. The second system that we're going to be talking about today is the GMS. And basically that is a software application that is separate from the portal. It has its own website and it supports the grant life cycle. So basically you got your application in it, it's got your amendments and your reimbursement request. So the first system we're going to kind of look at is the legacy NDE portal. And what we have in there are three different collections. And the first one is staff reporting. And the staff reporting is collecting the staff demographics and the staff position assignments for reportable staff members. And then we have NSSRS validation, which means Nebraska Student and Staff Reporting System. And this is at this time, only displays possible staff reporting errors and validation reports. And then we have SPEDFIRS, which is the Special Education Financial Reporting System. And this is used to collect the data to calculate the state SPED payment for the districts. And then the other system is GMS, and it has the IDEA Consolidated Grant. And that is where the IDEA application lives, and it has all the processes in there for the reimbursement payments. So now we're going to kind of look at the staff reporting for the 25-26 school year and the timeline and how this works. So in August of 2025, the staff reporting was open. And then in November of 2025, the IDEA Consolidated Staff Amendment was opened, and then it closed in December of 2025. And then staff reporting is going to close in June of 2026. And then SPEDFIRS is going to open in September of 2026, and it will close again in October of 2026. And then we have IDEA Consolidated Staff Amendment that's going to open again in January of 2027. And it closes in January of 2027. So this timeline is just showing you how the 2020, 2025, 2026 staff reporting is going to be used. So what is the role of staff reporting, specifically to SPEDFERS and IDEA Consolidated? Well, it's basically a verification process. So the staff reporting is verifying the information that is going into it. And then the NDE programs are relying on that information that to put together for their grants and their applications. So there's some terminology that we wanted to review. In staff reporting and IDEA, Consolidated and SPEDFERS, has position assignment code, which basically means that it's position assignment. It's their job. And then we have SPI codes, which is a special program indicator, and that's used to indicate what kind of funding source the position assignment is. And then SPEDFERS has a staff type, which would be like a bus driver and a CERT, sign language, clerical, paraprofessional. And then we have SPI codes, which is which the system is getting from staff reporting, and then the assignment code, which is getting from staff reporting too. So how do these systems all work together? Well, basically they're communication back and forth. And the GMS system is going out to staff reporting and it's asking for the NDE staff ID. It's looking for that position assignment code and it's doing the verification. And the staff reporting for SPEDFERS is looking for the special education program approval. So what happened? Well, there was, as with anything, we have software updates. And so there was an improvement with the updates for the verification and checking on the staff reporting. And the most common issue that we had is the para. And a para is a para is a para is the best way to say that. There's 3 specific codes for paras. There's a 75162, an I5162, and an S5162. And then the other problem that happened was that there is general education teachers that are subbing occasionally for the SPED, but they don't have that, they didn't have the position assignment code of substitute teacher and staff reporting, which is 05190. And so those were some issues that were saw. The other less common issues is that had to deal with counselors, school nurse, and then the incorrect program director code. So what's the next steps? Well, the next steps is that we're communicating and trying to develop a supplemental guidance that is SPED specific, but we do want to hear from you and have help from you. Budget and grants management is asking for you to share your pain points or any clarification that you need that you would like to see in the supplement guidance to help them put that together. So that was a quick review over the SPEDFERS and staff reporting. And we're going to open it up now for some coffee hour, some questions, and some conversation. And I'm going to start with our NDE experts if there is anything that they would like to add for like more clarification or more specific that they would like to say.
And just a heads up, Stacy. So I had muted everybody when they joined. I've now marked it as unmute. So if you would like to speak, you are able to do so. Same thing with the video. I had that turned off just for bandwidth stuff, but that is back on as well. But feel free to put questions in the chat as well if you have them there, and we can ask them on your behalf. Or if any of our NDE experts have any follow-up notes from Stacy's quick recap there, now would be a good time to mention those too. Thanks, Stacy.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you, Stacy. And NDE team, is it safe to make the kind of blanket statement that if your staff reporting an SSRS and otherwise is not correct, it will not pull appropriately?
Once it's closed. Yep, that's the key takeaway. Because it's open all year long. Once you're
Well,
past that June 30th date, there's no way to make changes to that. So that's why that date is so important with regard to staff reporting.
also with that, if you have them coded incorrectly, so the S, the I, the 7, and the S are very specific to funding sources within the application. So an SPI code starting with an I is school age federal fund. So your IDA 6408 and 6408 application or goal 2 school age would be an SPI code of the I. The 7 is early childhood. So your preschool grants or early childhood, so 619 funds, 6406, or below age 5 in the 6408 is a 7. And the S is SPED first. So state funds, which are only school age, you can claim early childhood in SPED first. So if you have someone coded with an S and you think you're going to use federal funds and you're trying to pull them through in your IDA application, they're not going to pull through because your SPI code is an S, not an I.
Correct. Can we,
That's
Stacy,
a
can you
very
go back to
common issue.
Stacy, can you go back to the timeline?
Sure.
Because I think one of the things that we wanted to do in our presentation today, and for those who don't know me, Camelia Rogers, Director of Grants Management here at NDE. So we're using the 25-26 school year in this timeline. So for individuals who are asking the question, well, SPEDFERS right now is the 24-25 school year. You are correct. But you just have to basically change these dates by 1 year going backwards to make this be a 24-25 school year timeline. One of the things that we wanted to do with this was to try to demonstrate the interconnectedness between these different things. So staff reporting during the school year is open. It's available to make changes. It's available to review however frequently it is that your district needs to or wants to review that information. But anything that's inside of that staff reporting for that school year is essentially what you are limited to for IDEA for that school year and SPEDFERS for that school year. So what Susie was talking about before, it's Susie Pierce is a special education teacher collaborator. And at the beginning of the school year, you want to utilize IDEA money to pay for part of her or all of her salary and benefits. The only way that you can do that inside of GMS is for her to have the SPI code inside of staff reporting. And if she doesn't have that I code, then when GMS goes and pings in SSRS to pull the data through, the data isn't there. She doesn't have the right code. So you would have to update staff reporting first before you would be able to update GMS to use your IDE money to help pay for that salary and benefits. Now, maybe Susie gets poached by a different school district and leaves during the middle of the year. And now you need to report somebody new, or maybe there's an internal staff change. In order to use the federal money to pay for that position, that new person would also have to have an I code. That person cannot have an S code because S is only state and local funding for SPED. So anybody with that S or any non-I code for a school-aged IDEA expenditure won't be able to pull through. The same thing is true with early childhood. So early childhood SPED, you have to have a 7 code. You can actually have all 3 codes inside of staff reporting. You can have a 7 and an I and an S. But in order to be able to pull it through inside of GMS, they would have to have the right funding source code for an I or a number 7 for early childhood. Now, I'm going to talk about SPEDFers for a moment. According to state law, we collect information about SPEDFers after the school year has closed. Staff reporting closes in June. We are not collecting the information inside of SPEDFers until the window opens, and according to state law, it's very specific. We are required to open that window on September 1st. We are required to close that window on October 31st. So staff reporting should already accurately reflect all of the appropriate codes for the school year that has ended. And once that window closes for staff reporting, in future years, especially, starting school year 25-26, there won't be the opportunity to do what we did this past year in November and reopen it for those districts that request it. I can't even imagine, Naomi, how many hours between all of us we spent working on that particular project here for the thousands and thousands of staff updates that we ended up doing. So the purpose of this timeline here, and feel free to go ahead and print this timeline off. I use my walls to post reminders of things here at work, so feel free to print that off. But the timeline, the purpose of that was to say, they interact with each other, and when staff reporting closes, it's closed. That information inside of there for your special education stuff should be accurate. We are getting a lot of questions.
Yes, I was just going to ask you that, Camelia.
Yep.
So the first question is, will we be able to continue using the 888 for sped and transportation costs, or are they going to be required to have a state ID and put in staff reporting?
We have to get away from 888 and 777. 777 was new this year. The 888 really, really should only be used when there was something that happened that prevented the ability to obtain an NDE ID number for a particular staff person. 888 is for transportation purposes. And we understand that we're not completely closing that off. It was available for school year 24-25. It'll be available for school year 25-26. Bus drivers, clerical, they're not reported inside of staff reporting. But they really should have it in the EID number. We do pull that data through that they exist in reporting. So it'll be available, yes, for 25-26. I don't know about thereafter.
So Camelia, I think that's a great opportunity for what we talked about, the NDE teams recapping this situation, things that happened. And that's a great question that goes into when we meet later this week to say, okay, that's the kind of question that we want to give you specific guidance to. We may not have it right now, but we could give you specific guidance to 25-26 school year, and then what to expect in 26-27 with specific instructions for how to handle those situations over the next couple of years. And the teams are putting that together. So I just wanted to give a shout out to asking these kind of questions in chat, and we'll do our best to answer them, but we may not be able to give you specifics because we're still working through a lot of that on how these systems do interact and changes that have happened to them since that time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let you get
Great.
back to reading through the questions, but I wanted to at least call that out again because I just want everybody here to know that NDE is working very actively to make sure that we have that information for you before the end of this school year. So please keep
Thank
asking
you,
questions.
Naomi.
Yeah.
Yes, please keep asking questions. Um,
Oh,
we can't answer the questions and we cannot address the questions if we don't know what the questions are. Um, okay, Angie has a question about gen ed teachers subbing
Teachers,
for
yep.
SPED. Yeah, it's 05190. Substitute teacher, the only code for substitute teacher is 05190. Yes, they should have both codes.
so
And
yeah,
I'll let
and
you guys talk about the FTE
FTE.
piece.
I was going to have Naomi address that. Yeah.
That's
So they
good.
Yeah.
have
Yep.
two state codes, and what about the FTE?
Yeah, this was one of the there was two big things. And I saw someone asked I think a para question, and I kind of wanted to follow up on what Stacey said too about paras. But general education teachers subbing for special education, they are general education teachers full time. That is what they do. You're going to report them at 100 FTE. This is not changing any of that. You're actually adding additional work to what you're reporting. So in addition to that full-time 100 FTE, you're adding a second line, and that's for that substitute teaching, and that's specific to the substitute teaching time they do in a SPED classroom, because that's where the SPED funding interacts with that. So SPED needs to see that extra, that second substitute teacher code, and there have to be days worked on that code in order for that information to get sent through, right? If we don't have all the data points, they can't use the information. So those two key things are important. And then the para is a para is a para is a para. We got a lot of questions about substitute paras. And this was a huge learning curve for me as well. But there is no such thing as a substitute para. And specific to the SPED group, if you're talking about a SPED para, then you use the SPED para code because that's the only one that they are evaluating. So a para is a para is a para, whether you may call them. And Camila, this might be one of those things. This is one of those places where NDE has to do some work, right? Because the
Hmm.
SPED first side says there is a SPED or a substitute para code, right? And staff
Uh-huh.
reporting doesn't. And that's what caused some of the confusion. So we have to do a
Right.
little crosswalk for you there.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. You're right, Naomi. And one of the reasons why inside of SpedFirst, for those of you who know the SpedFirst system, there's something called staff type. And I I wasn't here when SpedFirst was created, but in talking to people and in looking at historical information, um, staff type was really used because there is no bus driver code, there is no clerical code inside of staff reporting. But bus drivers and clerical are allowable for your special education reimbursement through the state. In addition to that, we also have this thing called supervisory and non-supervisory. And that particular status plays a huge part in how the SPED calculation is done for how much state funding you're going to receive for your special education expenditures. So professional and paraprofessional staff types are important when we're trying to do validation of data here when it comes to supervisory and non-supervisory. So that's why the staff type exists. And in trying to be helpful, in the past they had a staff type code of substitute paraprofessional. After the substitute teacher code was created inside of staff reporting because people wanted to differentiate between the two. And I think that caused some confusion. I'm going to go back to the questions. Daniel has a question.
Yeah.
Is there a June check tool we can use to run our staff through to assure that they will clear SPEDFRS, IDEA, and other federal fund codes? Naomi, I'm gonna double check with you on this, but I know I know that when I go inside of an SSRS, I can run a report that is specific to sped FERS,
Yes.
right?
Well,
Um,
ish.
ish,
Ish.
right?
So
Ish.
this is another one of those areas. Okay, NSSRS validation, the collection in Legacy Portal, offers districts the opportunity to view their staff reporting data in a different mechanism than the actual staff reporting collection. So that those opportunities include reviewing errors that potentially exist, making it so that we can't use your data, right? If your data is not perfectly aligned, we can't send it off to all the other systems. But the other thing that's in there are verification reports. And yes, there is a verification report specific to IDEA. And I think Susie made a comment in here too, and it's about certificated staff. I think the greatest tool for districts would be reviewing their overall personnel report. And what that report is, and it's in NSSR's validation, it lists every single person you've put in staff reporting. It tells you what position assignment code you've reported on that. It tells you what SPI code's been used. It's literally a report of all your data from staff reporting that is in the system and that's usable and moving on. So that touches on your federal programs, like making sure that your title codes are in there as well. But it also gives you the opportunity to look at people who have no SPI codes, who have zeros in there, because that means there's no specific funding, like your general ed teachers or whatever. You can see everybody. So that's called the personnel report. But I think we have opportunity to maybe tweak some things in there again as takeaway for us to make it more usable for districts specific to making sure their SPEDFERS is going to show up the way they want it to show up.
Well,
So
and the other thing is inside of your accounting system, we have all those AFR codes, right? So if you are using the AFR code 6408, that is your IDEA 6408. That is federal money is paying for this expenditure. If you have personnel that is being paid and they're coded to the AFR code 6408, someone should be checking to make sure that inside of staff reporting, they do in fact have an I code. If it is a school age child. And if it is a child that is birth to 5, they should have a 7 code for those staff. But an AFR code that is using account code 1200, that is your special education state and local funds AFR code. So anyone that is being coded to that AFR code inside your accounting system, um, they should have then a S inside of staff reporting in order for them to be allowable. And I say S generally speaking, right? So it's S for 90% of all of the staff that would be coded to an AFR code 1200. Bus drivers and clerical, they do not have an assignment code inside of staff reporting, so they wouldn't be in staff reporting. And your substitute teachers would have that 05190 code.
so there's a question about like about the staff that provide summer services. They want to know how
Mhm.
they should be coded. Like some
Right,
of the hours would fall in June and others hours in July and August. So that's
hmm
spanning over the 2 school years. So how
right.
how would that be addressed?
So I do see that question. But Dana submitted a question first since we were talking about staff reporting and making sure that you have the correct code. The question is, how do you report para subs reporting for SPED paras? They need to have the right SPED para code. There is no substitute paraprofessional assignment code inside of staff reporting. So if you have a gen ed teacher and their contract, they are a general education teacher, that's what they're contracted for. They are 100% gen ed. But occasionally during their I don't even remember what it called. I'm missing my word. It's a planning period. Is that what it's called? During their planning period, they get pulled out to act as a substitute paraprofessional. they should have a substitute paraprofessional code inside of staff reporting.
So can I rephrase that a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
Naomi. You
so
say it
for
a different way than I
everyone,
do.
yes, this is exactly what got us here. So the question was specific to a para substituting for a sped para. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's true. Yes.
all those words get intermingled, and then that's where that opportunity for confusion. So there's two situations. So let's cover the para one first. So you've
Yep.
got a regular para, maybe a lunchroom para, subbing for a sped para. Well, a para is a para is a para. So if this para is becoming a sped para, whether they're substituting or just doing it for one period, they're a sped para, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you need to make sure they have the training, and that's outside of my scope. But when you report them as a sped para for the
Mm-hmm.
time they are a sped para. Separate from that, you've got your gen ed teachers who
Yep.
potentially cover in a sped classroom for a sped teacher. They're substitute teachers for the sped teacher. So in my brain, the way I keep it is, if we're talking about paras, sped para, substitute. Like that's staff reporting. It's very specific to staff reporting. And then in my head, if it's teaching, then you can use the word substitute. You can substitute teach as a teacher, because the substitute teacher position in staff reporting is a certified position. So you can't have a lunch para in that position. That data won't match and it won't go through because that person's not certified as a substitute teacher. So that's in my brain. I keep it in two lanes. And I know when we get into the funding, sometimes those lanes cross over, but in my brain for staff reporting, I have to keep them very separate. So
Well, and I would add to that, and Naomi, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's the 5160 code that is the instructional support paraprofessional code. That particular code is really a title
it's
code. It can be used for any, right? It can be used for
no,
any.
it's
No?
used as an instructional paraprofessional, very
And they have the,
specifically an instructional para. A lot of it's for federal funding.
right,
It's not connected to SPED at all. So
right,
it's like it's its own thing for its own program, right? So
right,
you'd follow those rules if you're doing instructional para position. But I
right.
don't think if a SPED para is also an instructional para, there's two
Two
position
codes,
codes.
right?
Yep,
Two codes.
totally.
Because that SPED paraprofessional code, that 5162, that was created to meet the specific need of separating the two, right? There's the instructional support paraprofessional and there's the SPED paraprofessional. And that instructional support paraprofessional, there's like an assessment or something that
Yep,
needs to get submitted when they do staff reporting.
yep.
But for the SPED paraprofessional, there isn't. Like there's not that.
Because the sped para position doesn't require that special assessment of learning or
Yes.
how are they become an instructional para? What's their education to be that position? Yeah, they
Right. And
don't
like
have
a
to meet that.
test or something that they would have to, yeah.
It's a
So I was
yeah.
reading through the whole thing and I was like, So the other thing that we're seeing is a lot of paraprofessionals being reported as special education, but they have that 5160 code. They don't have the 5162 code.
So
So,
maybe, yeah, we need to
yeah.
take that away. Why are
hmm
we allowing 5160 into SPEDFers?
Yeah, why? Yeah. So that's something that we're going to be working on internally here, but knowing for you guys, it's the system allowed it, the SPEDFIR system allowed it for school year 24-25, but it they in for 25-26 school year and moving forward, we're going to lock it down even more on the SPEDFIR side for what data can flow through. So they really need to have that SPED paraprofessional code if you're going to be coding them to an AFR SPED account. Now, the question about summer services and how should they be coded?
Really quick, and I know that
Yeah, go
that's the
ahead.
next question, but there's
Go
lots
ahead.
of follow-up questions specific to this topic, and so I feel like it might be timely to cover those right now.
Go ahead.
If that's okay.
Go ahead.
Let me see if I can find one. So, what if we have a para that is a certified substitute teacher and is pulled into sub for a special education teacher. What a nuanced question, right? So they may be reported as several positions. You may report them as that sped para. And then you're also reporting them as a substitute teacher. And that's possible because you're reporting days work for substitute teachers and you're reporting FTE for sped para. So it's possible to report both of those at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So what else would be? Oh, I like this very specific question from Paul. If a middle school or high school special education teacher teaches a pull-out reading class and assigns grades one period a day and the rest of the day is a co-teacher, he's breaking into like, how do I do this FTE and how do I break it into the position? So it is a really nuanced question. That's the kind of question that I would start a ticket with the service desk or with Camellia on, because it gets into such nitty gritty detail that we may want to take a look at it. And that may not be one that we can answer on an overarching scheme right now. But I just wanted to acknowledge that question in there, that things get really detailed and very nuanced. I know like the ESUs, they have to break FTE out by like 10, 15 different districts. It can get wild for them. So those are good questions to submit a ticket for.
Did
What
you
else?
see Hillary's about if the para is a certified sub teacher but being pulled in for?
That's the one I was saying, like, yeah, you can report them as both. Yeah, substitute teacher and a sped para. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I got lost. Sorry.
You're good. There's so many questions in there.
Okay, back
Do
you want to go
summer.
to summer?
Yeah,
okay.
Back to summer. Sorry, Camellia.
Okay, no, you're fine. You're fine. So it's a great question about summer because the state law says that in calculating your SPED state dollars, the financial period goes from September 1 to August 31st. And with the way that school, opening and closing and stuff is, we like straddle years. So really what we've been doing with those, and this is an update that we will have to do on the SPED side, is allowing an opportunity to say, yes, I have an NDE ID number for this person. So let's say it's a brand new staff person. I get this question a lot. It's a brand new staff person and they did in-service training in the month of June. So obviously they were paid for with, in this case, the 24-25 school year money. That's fine. We can still reimburse that. There's no expectation that they would have been reported in staff reporting for school year 24-25, because really they're for school year 25-26. So it is an issue. I understand that you're still going to be able to report those individuals, but we're going to collect the information from you next year for school year 25-26. So the next data collection that will be in the fall, where I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if it's going to be a checkbox. I don't know if it's going to be a drop down, but it'll be something that says, yes, that this is what this situation was or whatever. And it will be able to still flow through so that you can submit that expenditure to us to include in your calculation. So I guess the long story of that is we're aware that it is a situation. We are trying to collect information proactively when SPEDFRS gets submitted. We don't expect that they would be reported inside of staff reporting. So this is kind of an exception to the rule for those that are in the summer. That's the new staff thing for existing staff that are doing stuff over the summer. My immediate answer to that, if they're existing staff and they're doing stuff over the summer for the school district, for the kids, they would already be in staff reporting. I don't know, Naomi, do they have like there isn't a specific like summer thing, right?
So
go ahead, Nikki.
I'll layer onto that, and let's be clear and specific in our guidance, because where my mind goes from the program side is Summer school may have courses
Hmm.
that special ed students attend either for credit recovery, remedial, because summer school, that term, is applicable to any and all students in a district, okay? Special education students or regular ed students first.
Mhm.
If an IEP denotes extended year services that will take place over the summer months, that is specific, and the FTE or staffing needs to match that. You cannot offer summer school sessions that are regular ed and special ed attended and be reimbursed state or federal money for special education. That
Mm.
money is earmarked specifically for extended year services per the IEP. Then that would be reimbursable.
Well, and that means then that that staff person taught that whole year, or they were there by the end of the year, and we have a start date and an end date in staff reporting. So let's say someone started in May, you can report them in May and June. And then but generally, as Mickey indicated, it's typically credit recovery, or it's something along the lines of that school year, right? And they may be doing it a little bit further, but get them reported in that school year. So if we're talking 25, 26, that's for the kiddos doing credit recovery in summer of 2026. This summer, make sure the staff are reported in 25, 26 up until June 30th. You could add them on June 30th, the literal last day of June 30th, if you need to support that summer 2026. Mickey, does that kind of align too? And this is one of those points where we maybe potentially need some very specific guidance around this. And we can run it by multiple people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just definitely my rule of thumb from the Office of Special Education too, especially when we're getting into the nuances and weeds of who can and can't be reimbursed, depends a lot on if they're endorsed or properly trained as a para per Rule 51 to deliver those services.
Perfect segue, Mickey, because I wanted to make sure to cover the comment you had put in chat that talked about ensuring that teachers were properly endorsed for SPED, because that if they are not properly endorsed, they're not going to flow through. That data
Mhm.
isn't going to jive. Staff reporting may say they're a SPED teacher or they may have that SPED endorsement, but if it's not, if they don't actually have a SPED endorsement, if they're not actually certified, if they're on a provisional or something, it's not going to jive through and it's not going to send to the next system. So that's that importance of reviewing those NSSRS validation reports, especially the ones specific to like the GMS, to make sure that those staff are passing as yeses and they are passing as, oh, yep, all of their information. And if it looks funky, Service Desk has been getting tickets for this recently. It's good. It's good they're looking at it, because if it looks funky and you're expecting it to say, yes, they should pass through, and it says no, there may be something we need to fix on the technical side to make sure that they pass through. So,
Yeah, that's a good point, Naomi.
yeah.
So we'll have to, I think that that's one of the things that go on the list for NDE, Stacy, is for us to get together and maybe provide some guidance in our supplemental that we're going to do about how to handle the summer staff.
Absolutely.
Because I think I have a good handle on, those brand new teachers coming in that need the training in July. I'm going to move on to the next one
I
for a
was going to say,
question. Go
Brad,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I just want to clarify for Brad. He's asking if there is going to be a creation of sub para, like a code position assignment code, if it's going to be created, a code for SPED para subs and SPED teacher instructional subs for 25-26. If we're
25,
creating that.
No, not for
not for
25-26. No.
25, 26. That we've got what we've got. We may consider things for 26, 27, but 25, 26 is same as we've got.
Okay.
Yep.
And then he's
And
also
there is
worried.
no, yep. There's
And
no
then he's,
sped driver code. No.
yep. Yep. Okay.
Um,
Go ahead.
and then I think we go down to Kim.
Mm-hmm.
If the person who completes the staff report is different than the person who completes sped first, Then the manual guidance that provides info to support situations where the information needed for staff reporting.
I know the gist of her question.
Okay,
It's
go ahead, Naomi, because I'm,
it's yep. What happens at the districts is exactly what happens at NDE, y'all.
Mm.
We are all struggling with the same thing of people do what they know to do, right? You've got your business manager who knows how to do staff reporting, and then you've got your SPED director who knows how to do SPEDFers. I'm making up situations, right?
right,
Naomi, as NDE, knows staff reporting like the back of her hand, but she doesn't know SPEDFers. That's Camelia's area of expertise. And what does that is the whole gist of what we're here today because we've discovered we, NDE, have an opportunity to absolutely help the districts with the same challenges that we're facing is I'm the expert at staff, Camelia is the expert at SPEDFers. We need to talk to understand how those systems integrate and provide the districts with information so that if the bookkeeper hears one thing, then the SPED director has those same tools and useful guides for their work, right? Because we all
right.
talk in different words and we use different verbiage
Yeah,
to say the same thing, right? So that is
right.
one, that's what we talk about these questions being great for, because we are going to put together some sort of supplemental guidance for 25-26 to get you through this school year as we evaluate what we're going to do in 26-27. And it's just as that question indicates. You've got three different people doing three different things in three different systems. And it's
Mhm.
difficult when you're talking in the different phrases, right? So when Camelia
Well,
talks about,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, when
right.
she says
That's what I was
something
going to
about,
say.
when she talks about Spedfers, I kind of like, I get a glazed over look. It's like talking about math. I'm like, huh? But she may be doing the same for staff reporting. So,
Yeah,
So, so
we've discovered that even internally, we're saying the same thing, but using different language
yeah.
because our roles are different and our perspective is different because Naomi lives in the staff reporting world and the service desk world, and I live in the grants management world.
And
Um,
Mickey
I-
adds,
Mhm.
remain compliant with fiscal regulations for state and federal government because that's her
right.
world. That's her role, right? Like it's
Yes,
perfect,
yes.
Mickey. I'm glad you put that comment in there because it's
Well,
true.
and Mickey doesn't want to lose any more money from the state and federal government.
Okay, we're kind of
Okay,
running out of time and we still have a
yeah,
lot of
we have about
questions.
eight
So,
minutes left. Sam asked, what if the teacher assists in the sub para rule, which I think you guys kind of have addressed that,
yep, yep, they need to have a
the substitute teacher.
S5162 code. Um, FTE is not assigned to the substitute teacher role. And Tammy, this goes back to the terminology thing. There is no SPED teacher substitute code.
Mhm.
It is just a substitute teacher
Teacher.
code.
Mhm.
So for the 25-26 school year, there will be no new codes added. The codes are already locked down. That happened quite some time ago now. 26-27, we don't know if there will be a special code created. I think there's already a lot of codes. So I would anticipate the 05190, that's the substitute teacher code. That is the code that should be being used. Um, and they wouldn't go over FTE, right, Naomi? If it is a if it is a
Substitute.
teacher, they're 100% teacher, and then for substitute teacher role, it's the number of days. So
Yep.
they wouldn't go over 100%.
Mhm.
Okay, so if a middle school or high school special education teacher,
Oh, we covered
teaches,
that one.
we
Okay,
did.
that's the
Okay,
one.
good. I
Yep.
was going to say, wait a minute. I think we
Yeah. Naomi hit that one. And then
we did
Hillary
that one.
asks, what if we have a para that is certified sub teacher and pulled into a sub for a special education teacher, which,
It's yeah. I mean, if it's
yeah.
if they're substituting as a para, it's the para code. If they're substituting as a teacher, it's the 05190 code. And we've already answered that sub para question. Um, okay, yeah. So Sally has a question. If it's a substitute teacher Is it always 05190, or is there? Okay, so 05190 is teacher substitute, or is it, I always forget, is it substitute teacher or teacher substitute?
Substitute teacher, a
Okay, thank you.
certified, yep, a certified position. They have to be certified.
Okay, so the 05190 is substitute teacher. If they are acting as a paraprofessional, if a person is acting as a paraprofessional in a SPED classroom, if it's if they're subbing in, if it is a regular staff, if it is a whatever, a, a pair goes back to what Naomi said before. A para is a para is a para. So if they're acting as a paraprofessional, regular or substitute, the code is 5162.
And if they're acting as a teacher, they need to be certified as such, which is why the substitute teacher position is certified, because they're
Right.
acting as a teacher, a substitute teacher.
Angie has a question that says, continue to, I'm guessing, treat 13-month new teachers as subs, even though they won't be reported by June.
Well, wouldn't they though?
That's really a staff reporting question. I'm going to kick this. I'm going to say, Naomi, this is 100% yours.
Well, she says 13-month teachers. Are you talking the start date would have been in June of 2025 and they're working through July of 2026? I'm going to make up I work in real life. I'm thinking that's the case because then they're reported in 25-26 because 25-26 runs from July 1 in staff reporting from July 1 through June 30th.
So if somebody was going to start working in 26, 27,
okay,
but they're a 13-month employee, we're going to pay them a month before they actually start.
Oh.
So this is the one. So Angie, this is the one that I was talking about. We know that this is a thing inside the summer that happens. And we know that a brand new SPED teacher is going to go through training or whatever in July. And for school year 25-26, because you're paying them in the month of July 2025, that is 24-25 money according to state rules, regulations of how your school district by fiscal year runs. So we're aware, we know that on first school year 25-26, then they wouldn't be in staff reporting. If they started in July of 2026 for the 26-27 school year. Those are brand new teachers. They're in July, they're getting trained. We need to figure out a way to deal with that specific issue inside of SPED first so that we're actually collecting it. Right now, we know it's an issue, but we're not collecting the data to say Angie was hired in July. That's why there's no SPI and assignment code. We're working it out.
So just continue on with
Just
the
do what you're
entering
doing.
them manually, and so at least they're there.
Yeah, exactly. And Angela is talking about a crosswalk.
Yep.
So in my mind, what I'm thinking about with Spedfers for a crosswalk is I think it would be helpful to have a crosswalk maybe for the business managers, the accountants, and maybe I'm wrong, that says these AFR codes would need to line up with these things in staff reporting.
I think the crosswalk is the data elements that are talking from staff reporting to SPEDFIRS, and then definitions of what the word is in staff reporting and what the word is in SPEDFIRS. And how that, it's basically, for those of you who know, Max Reiner, who does our data like movement, I don't know how else, it's basically taking what he knows in his database tables and what's lining up with what. That's the crosswalk that I'm thinking of, and maybe Angela's thinking the same because she's kind of a data person like me, and knowing what data lines up with what data and how that works, right? And then you know that the business, the people doing staff reporting may speak this language, but they can crosswalk just like a translation guide or a Rosetta Stone. They can crosswalk to now in SpedFirst. When I talk to my SPED director, I can use this word, and they know in SpedFirst what that word means from my end because I'm translating. But that's what I envision. But I feel like we still have a lot of discussions to be had regarding that.
So that brings us to our resources here.
Yep.
But did we do a slide above that one, Stacy? I forget what order it's in.
Whoops. It's just, which one are you looking for?
Oh, this one right here. So there's a lot of pain points, there's a lot of clarification that everyone wants to request. And it is three different departments within NDE. Well, yeah, three. There's three different departments where we're all working together to try to provide this supplementary information to you guys for 25-26. So budget and grants management will be the collection point for um, you guys go back, talk amongst each other, talk internally within your district. Let us know what your pain points are, what clarification is you feel like you need in order to ensure accuracy for the 25-26 school year for GMS, IDEA consolidated, um, staff reporting, and SpedFirst. Let us know what those are. We're going to collect all of that information. We're working together as a group here to get you guys that supplementary guidance. So that's the email address right there on the screen to send any of that to, and we will be working together here to get that guidance out.
Yeah. And we come to the end of our time. And I know we could probably talk for another hour, but I appreciate everybody coming in with their questions and comments. I just wanted to say Marcy just suggests that maybe the NDU would modify their calendar to match what the schools have. That was one of her suggestions in the chat. But anyway, so I just thank everybody for coming, and I appreciate it, everybody's time and attending our coffee hour. And we will be having staff reporting 101 on April 7th. It will be our next coffee hour. So go ahead, Camille, can't hear you.
Jennifer from Bridgepoint, go ahead and send us a question. Send us that question so that we can address that particular issue.
And we are capturing all of your questions as you continue to chat. And so we will follow up with you directly since we won't have time to cover them here. But if you're still putting chats in there, we'll create tickets and follow up with you and make sure we get back to you.
I'll stay online for a while, make sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Stacy, can you move to the next slide with all the contact information?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thanks.
Naomi, you could probably stop recording.
I will do so.
Thank you.